We are live and in front of people. I know at least
hello.
there's at least a people in there.
Hello, people.
Oh, all right. Let's see. And you can hear this okay.
I'm not a Frenchie. I'm a Belgie.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So you'll hear everything. You've done the show. You know how it goes. I think we're good to go. So start this, and we are going to be starting in 3, 2, 1.
You know, I don't like buyers coming out to the site.
Yeah, hey, Mac. Sorry, I'm just, we're just looking for that couple with the green pickup.
Turquoise.
You got a little something. They haven't been around for a few weeks. What'd they do?
Nothing. Just a little misunderstanding we gotta get sorted out.
They took my pig.
What kind of pig?
Hello and welcome. Welcome and hello. This is Wait You Haven't Seen. It's a show where we talk about movies, and specifically a movie at least one of us has never seen before. I'm your host, Travis, a.k.a. TV's Travis. This is episode number 181, and it's also the final week of Cage-A-Palooza 2022. And joining me to wrap up our month-long yearly celebration of the wonder that is Nicolas Cage, it is David Luzader. David, how are you?
Hello, hi. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on. I know, we're all gonna miss those discounts that we get during Cage-A-Palooza.
All the Cage-A-Palooza sales that go on.
Always great deals every year.
Excellent deals. So from the clip, if you didn't figure it out yet, our movie this week is 2021's Pig. And first, what I want to know is, what did you know of this movie? What was your sort of background with it prior to seeing it for this?
Nicolas Cage has a truffle pig that gets taken from him, and he tries to get it back.
Yep.
That's all I knew.
Okay. Pretty much the same for me. I had heard it described as John Wick with a pig by some people, which, look, it's not. It's not that at all.
Nope, not at all. I was wondering if that's what it was going to be, but nope.
Yeah, like the correlation between those two movies is literally Nick Cage has a pet pig and the pig gets taken from him, and that's it. There's nothing else similar about these two movies, really, other than, I guess, both of them being kind of savants in their whatever field they were in.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
But that's a loose connection at best. So this movie I had heard of and I'd heard good things about. And when we had talked previously, and I remember this movie coming up as like something we ought to watch. So I'll just ask straight out, what did you think of it as a movie? Just sitting down watching it as a movie-going experience or a movie-watching experience.
It was different than I thought it was going to be in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good movie. It's interesting. Like, there's people I would not recommend this movie to because I just don't think they would like it. I don't know. I don't want to say I'm disappointed by the movie, but I think I was expecting a little bit more from it. And a good Nick Cage performance. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But I don't know. The movie itself, I was just kind of like, oh, okay. It's a little more low key than I was expecting.
Yeah, the way that it was kind of marketed, especially with all the pictures, you got this grizzled looking Nick Cage with like the big bushy beard, and he's kind of all beat up. And it gives you this idea that it's going to be more of a, I'm going to get my pig back by any means necessary. And we've seen Cage do similar revenge-fueled movies in the past with things like Drive Angry being one of them. That comes to mind. It's not that movie at all. In fact,
no.
As you said, it's a very subdued, it's a very slow-moving movie. It's a very small movie.
Yeah.
And at the heart of it is Nicolas Cage and his performance. And I think that is the thing that, for me, the performances of Nick Cage and Adam Arkin. Sorry, not Alan Arkin. Adam Arkin and the chef in a scene we'll talk about in a little while were like, for me, the tentpoles of this movie. And Nick Cage being the one, he just carried through the whole thing so well. And I think I lost David. He is frozen. I'm going to pause the recording right about here. I lost him. Yep. Oopsie-doo. His computer crashed, so we have a nice still frame of David until he comes back. Oh, that's funny. Technical difficulties. Well, until he comes back. Oh. Well, we'll see. Until he comes back, though. How's everybody doing? Y'all doing okay?
I'm here.
There he is. That was funny. Funky.
Okay. Oh. Oh boy. Okay.
If you
Let me
and
start Discord.
okay, because I can hear you. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Oh gosh.
Maybe is right. It's the man. The man doesn't want us talking about pig. Okay, we're partway there.
All right.
Okay. There he is. Or not. Or maybe. Or perhaps. Oh no. We had the rings of ringage, but we did not have the rings of speakage. We may have to... Might have to shoot over to Skype and try it that way. Because it could be Discord, or it could just be his entire computer is taking a big old poop. Who knows?
All right. For the moment, I'm just going to leave my camera off because that keeps causing trouble.
That is fine. We can go without camera.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
I apologize. I don't know what happened.
Not a problem. Things happen. No worries. We'll pick it back up. Let's see. I was talking about the
How
performances.
subdued the movie was.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. And go. Yeah, and it's a subdued movie, but it's carried by Nicolas Cage, Adam Arkin, and the guy that played the chef in that scene. We'll talk about a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
And most notably Nick Cage in a performance that honestly for me is one of his better. Like, there isn't the Cage rage kind of freak out that you're sort of waiting for the whole movie.
Yeah.
There's one moment I think where he steals the bike and he yells. But the
Right.
like the which did make me laugh quite a bit. But the rest of the movie,
It was very funny.
he's so like reserved, but it's really, for me anyway, I found it to be a very powerful performance. And you know, I mentioned how people had called it like John Wick with a pig. This actually has as much or more similarity with something like Mandy than it does with John Wick. I don't know if you saw Mandy or not.
Sure. Yeah. I have seen Mandy. I would say this is probably, you're right. It's probably closer to Mandy, though Mandy has, well, Mandy's not John Wick-like, but things sort of move in a very similar direction, shall
Sure.
we say?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is like, he's not getting revenge. Most of this movie is him just asking people where his pig is.
Yeah, and it's really more about like this guy and what happened to him, and sort of like this little slice of this world that in restaurants that we don't really think of, especially you know, something like like high-end truffles, and sort of where those are sourced and how people get them. And what I liked was he didn't, like, it was this thing where he was a renowned chef in Portland, which it took it took a little bit till the movie set us in Portland. But he's this renowned chef in Portland who just sort of disappeared one day. And we don't get any backstory as to exactly what happened, but we can kind of piece together, right? Like his wife died. In ways.
Something happened, she died, and that messed him up real big.
Yeah. And I feel like in some ways part of him was like that chef that he runs into, and her death sort of forced him to really rethink some things. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe he wasn't like that at all, or he was when he was really young. It's hard to say because the movie's kind of open to your interpretation of things.
But I will give the movie the credit that it does a pretty good job of doing some storytelling without being super in your face about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole thing with her doesn't. It talks about it enough that you get it, but it doesn't ever have him be like, the reason this all happened is because my wife died, and let me monologue for 2 minutes. Like when he goes to the diner early on and is like, oh, does whoever still work here? And the woman's like, no, she's been dead for 10 years. Like, that's a pretty good, like, oh, okay. So he hasn't really been in society for about 10 years. Like there is some good storytelling that happens here.
Yeah. And it takes its audience, it gives its audience a lot of credit to sort of fill those things in themselves and kind of interpret that, which I appreciate as a viewer. And Cage in this movie there's equal parts of him being the beginning of it, he barely talks, and he talks more to the pig than he does to Amir when Amir comes to get the truffles from him for the first time. And again, like that part of the movie, I'm watching it and I'm thinking, okay, now I can kind of see where we're going. I'm sort of prepared for what the movie's going to be. And then it subverts that expectation and it goes in a little different direction. And he's not, like, he is a hermit. He does live off in the woods on his own, but it's not entirely who he is. Like, he still has memories of his old life. And I don't know, there was something just really human about Nick Cage's performance in this as this guy who he lost things, but he also, like, self-imposed lost a lot.
Right. Yeah. It's whatever happened. He then himself, it was not like, oh, he lost his game. He's no longer the amazing chef that everybody thought he was. Like, he's still an amazing chef. And then his wife died and he got real sad. And so he stopped cooking. And now he lives out in the woods and hunts for truffles. I will say that the movie is fairly straightforward in all ways, except for the one weird underground. It's supposed to be a fighting pit, but it looks like people just get punched in the face.
So I figured out what that is. What's going on there is the guy, when he first goes into Portland and he takes that plate of food from one of the food trucks, whatever it was, looked like maybe some fries or something, kind of takes it like a peace offering to that guy in the tent. That guy ran an underground ring where restaurant workers could pay money to beat on chefs.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which is why his name held such high regard there. That's what that whole scene, and that was the scene, the first one where he goes to the tent and he talks to the guy. That was the first moment where I'm like, ooh, this is a lot like Mandy, because this felt like a scene that was in that movie, right? Where it's like this weird esoteric moment where this person is saying things and, like, it doesn't make sense to anybody except the character of Rob.
Right.
In that moment.
Yeah, that also gave it the slightest of John Wick vibes, right? So there's this whole kind of world underneath the world, but then there's like no more of that at any point. It's just like this, this strange place where restaurant workers can punch chefs for a little bit, and that's it.
Yeah, and it was sort of like he had to endure that in order to sort of prove that his name still did carry weight enough for that guy to
he's still
talk to
Rob
him.
Feld. Right.
Yep. So it was simultaneously like really weird and also really cool, and it sort of just it fit in the moment. It's the most out of place part of the movie.
Yes.
But at the same time, when you start to look at the movie as a whole and you realize like our villain is literally just a guy who sells truffles, but he's somehow
Right.
like a truffle kingpin.
Right.
Like it's sort of then the punching chefs in the underground kind of fits in there just a little bit better. But yeah, it is this kind of strange universe that this movie takes place in Portland. But I kind of dug that too. Like I liked how it was just weird enough, but they also didn't have to over explain it.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It was very like out of left field. Like we're digging into this underground, like literally underground, some sort of fighting ring. And I just kind of thought there was going to be another something of that. And there wasn't. And that just like it, in retrospect, looking back at it, it's like, well, that was so weird. That was so strange. I mean, the movie was so in so many ways not what and like not in a bad way.
Mhm.
I don't want to make it sound like I'm really judging it and it sucks for that. It was just like very unexpected, and then to never have kind of that be revisited or anything like that really brought up again, except for the fact that he is bloody for the rest of the movie.
Yeah. And like it starts from the scene where the pig gets taken, where he gets hit with the pipe, and he's bloody from that, and it just keeps compounding. And it's like he never cleans that off, and it's sort of his internal wounding made manifest on his outside. And it's not till the end of the movie that he cleans himself up in the river. And that, which is, also he's sort of allowing himself to heal from whatever had happened to him in the past. So
It's all metaphorical.
Yeah, and it's this interesting like journey where he is remembering his former life while also dealing with whatever pain he was going through, but we don't have to have it like spelled out for us. It's just sort of we understand that that's happening. That last scene in the diner was really cool. Go ahead.
I was gonna say everyone's just very angry at him for leaving, but it's not like he didn't seem like he burned a lot of bridges. But a lot of people seem very hurt about the fact that he just kind of like up and walked away.
Yeah, it's very much like he was. The way the movie deifies him as a chef, right? Where Amir's parents, literally, that was the best moment of their entire marriage.
That was interesting. It's a very self-contained little world. There's just like a little funny kind of bit. Like the only time my parents were happy in all their years of marriage is when they went to your restaurant.
Yeah, what was cool about that was the fact that like he didn't know who this guy was prior to the whole Fight Club moment, and that name is what made him realize who this guy is, which I thought was an interesting way to reveal that.
Yeah,
but then we have like the next day where we have my favorite, hands down favorite scene and moment in the movie, and that's in the restaurant when they go. And they sit down, and you've got, I don't know if you've ever eaten at a restaurant like this one where the wait staff comes out and they literally like give you a story about whatever it is you're about to eat.
No, and I immediately was like, this sounds awful to be part of.
It's like that. It's that haute cuisine where, and what I liked was the idea of the restaurant was to deconstruct things, and then Robin literally deconstructs the chef right there at the table, and breaks him down. Which that whole scene, that whole conversation is really interestingly done because that actor is giving away so much without saying hardly anything, and you're just watching him unravel. And it's like that's the moment you can think of where you might get that Cage moment, right? That sort of freak out type of, or like this really long, I don't know, something. And you get this speech from him, but it's so subdued, and it's just like, well, what is it you want to do? Why are you a chef? Basically, is what he kept asking this guy, and he broke him down in. Very, very interesting way. I liked that scene a lot. I liked Cage. It had that great one-liner, if we don't have a lot of things to care about, or we don't get a lot of things to care about. And we're still at this point, like, all he wants is his pig back. That's it.
Right.
And we find out that this guy was involved in some way without, like, Nick or Robin never even, like, straight up accuses him. He's just like, where's my pig? And the guy's like, I didn't have anything to do with that. I don't know what you're talking about. And like, where's my pig? Oh, you don't want to get this guy angry. And it's like the reveal that it's Amir's father, who we've been, it's been touched on. I just, that scene was the pivotal one for me. It feels like that was the first scene written, and they kind of built things around that.
Yeah, no, it's a very good scene. It's I guess it's kind of the thesis of the movie in a way. Like,
yeah,
this was written by somebody I feel like who worked in a lot of kitchens, or worked in a lot of restaurants, and heard a lot of people saying a lot of things that sounded super important inside of a restaurant, but like really are kind of ridiculous. Like when I heard the person being like, "It's sitting on a foam," I'm like, okay, like sure, that's what I'm hungry for right now is some foam. Thanks, sounds delicious.
Well, and for that chef to come out and then he recognizes Robin because of the name, right? So then he sits down and he's talking to him. He's like, I
also worked for him for 2 months. Yeah.
But when he says like, yeah, you probably don't remember I worked for you. And immediately Robin's like, oh yeah, you worked for me for 2 months and I fired you because you overcooked the pasta.
Yeah. And they don't emphasize the fact that Robin has the best memory. I'm pretty sure he's a mutant of some kind.
He has to be.
He seems to be able to remember everything exactly.
Yeah. And then for him to like, go at this chef who is using all of the haute cuisine kind of talking points, right? Like, well, it's super exciting. And he's like, oh, exciting, but what is it you want to do? And like,
yeah, it's cutting edge.
Yeah. And what I thought was kind of cool about that was like, he had seen in this guy, however many years, 15 years earlier or whatever it was, what he wanted to do. And he was bringing that back on him because he's seeing him in this successful restaurant, which, by the way, had a Greek name. And I got to find I'll find the trivia that talked about it. But there was a cool thing, a cool play they did on the names of Cage's restaurant and this guy's restaurant.
No,
I'll see if I can find that. But yeah, I just that scene to me was like you said, it was the thesis of the movie. It was the crux. Because that has to work or the rest of the movie just doesn't. Then the other one being the final breakdown with Adam Arkin, which, by the way, I saw Adam Arkin's name come up in the opening credits, and then he doesn't show up for like an hour into the movie. So I'm like, okay,
yeah.
so he's the bad guy.
But yeah, that stands to reason.
Tell me this. Is there anybody that can play that character that Adam Arkin is playing better than him? What is it about Adam Arkin? I don't know how familiar you are with him, but what is it with him and like his delivery where you just want to slap him?
Yeah, I don't know Adam Arkin all that well. I'm looking at the stuff that he's done, and it's TV shows I've meant to watch, but have not, unfortunately. Not to say that's all he's done, but like that seems to be where kind of I've come to have my appreciation. Yeah, no, he's good. He's good. I mean, he plays the business asshole without having to play too over the top with it.
No, although he gets to go more over the top than Cage does, which normally
when he breaks down after eating the dinner,
which that was very much a. Did that feel like a nod to Ratatouille to you? A little bit. Like, I
mean, isn't the whole movie in a way?
It kind of, yeah. But like that particular thing where he sits down and he has that exact meal and it makes him remember that moment with his wife, which there again is a subplot that like is barely touched on, but it's also incredibly important to the movie, which is this guy, his wife is in a coma and being kept alive, but their son, for all intents and purposes, like tells people that she's dead. And like there's a whole lot of that family dynamic going on that's just like, wow, that's complex and there's a lot to unpack in that. We haven't really even talked about Amir a whole lot, which was the character that had probably the most change and growth in the movie.
And probably the most dialogue, because he's playing against Cage, who for most of the movie says like one line every 10 minutes or so.
Yeah. Okay, so I did find this piece. So Chef Finway and Rob meet at the Hestia, which was Rob's restaurant. And Finway's new restaurant is called the Eurydice. Eurydice? Reference to the struggle shared by every character in Pig. Either they can look backwards in despair at their lost passions, or forward, experience the terror that might be once gone or already gone forever. Because Eurydice and Hestia were Greek, I want to say deities or demigods, kind of contrasting styles. And when I read that, I was like, that's why those names sounded familiar, because I'm not super familiar with either in terms of Greek mythology, but the names sounded familiar enough. I was like, that's actually some moderately clever writing to kind of throw that in there, because it's really only mentioned in that one scene. But it kind of shows the differences in sort of the chef's thinking of what they're doing. So I found that interesting.
Yeah, no, it's a nice little, it's that higher level of thought you want filmmakers to give,
Yeah. Now here's an interesting thing for you. Michael Sarnowski, who co-wrote and directed this is his first feature film.
I saw that. Yeah.
He's working on A Quiet Place Day One next, and he had done some shorts and a couple of TV series prior to this, but it's a pretty damn good debut.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there was something to it that it got Nick Cage's attention. And
yeah, this feels like one of those. So, okay, I have said this throughout all of my reviews of Nicolas Cage movies, and this year especially. Nicolas Cage never does anything halfway. Like, he doesn't phone it in, even when he's doing kind of going through a bit of a period where he was doing a lot of stuff that really felt like he was just doing it for a paycheck. He's still like, he's always bringing something to it, whatever that might be. But I feel like he gets unfairly turned into nothing more than a meme when the guy's got acting ability.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, he's Nick Cage, Academy Award winner, and he is far more self-aware than I think people think that he is.
Yes.
Not to say that the guy hasn't been a bit eccentric. Let's put it that way. He definitely has, but he also knows that he has been eccentric in the past. Like I've probably told this story, and it's not even one of my stories. But there's I was listening to an episode of How Did This Get Made, which is another movie podcast.
Sure.
And they had on the directors of the Ghost Rider 2 with Nick Cage. And
Okay,
they like had some bit where it's like, oh, and Nick Cage is a Nick Cage freak out. And Nick Cage is like, what do you want? Like, what do you want me to do? Because I've done this so many times,
Right.
that like, I it's hard to do anything kind of new with this. So like, he is aware, he's not just like, and I'm going to go out there and like this character would go crazy. It's like, no, he knows people kind of expect that of him. So it's nice to have, Mandy didn't have a big freak out scene, but there was that scene of him in the bathroom, like pouring the vodka on himself to like kind of deal, and he's screaming and going wild. It's nice to have like a movie where he's not playing the meme, which is also like a thing he does now with like that other movie about him being himself.
Yeah, which I just did last week, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Yeah, I still need to see that, but that is just like playing into the meme, right? Of I'm Nick Cage. It is,
but it also isn't. It's an interesting. It's a more interesting movie than I think even it appears to be.
Good.
It's
good.
It's good. It's definitely worth watching for sure.
Yeah,
because there's that self-awareness involved that he has. But at the same time, like, he also does these smaller emotional things. This Joe was another one that he did that's really kind of personal and emotional. He brings something. There's like a charisma to him and this intensity that he has. That
yeah, I mean, he's entertaining to watch. He's someone when he's on screen. It's like, I want to see what Nick Cage is going to do.
Yeah, because you're never sure if you're going to get something subdued like this. Or I remember one of my favorites is Bringing Out the Dead that he did, the Martin Scorsese one, where for the most part, pretty subdued. He has a couple of crazy moments in it, but it's a really good performance. And then there's other times where he does, like, he could have very easily kind of kept riding the wave of sort of the big blockbuster movie stuff that he was doing in the 90s with the Bruckheimer type productions of like The Rock and Con Air and Face Off, because he was a box office draw. But he didn't want to do that. And he didn't want to keep doing just that. And so he would branch out and he would do other things, and he would do, like, honestly, 8mm was kind of a risky move to do at that time, because that came out in 98, 99, I think. And I think even there's some of kind of his feelings on sort of the movie industry in layers in this movie too, with the way that, like, because his character of Robin in Pig is kind of disillusioned by restaurant life in general, with the way he breaks down that chef and sort of makes fun of he's almost making fun of haute cuisine, and like this idea that this guy wanted to make a pub, and that was his passion, was to make a pub and pub food. And meanwhile, here's this guy in a fancy restaurant that is the furthest thing from pub food, because it's the thing that will get investors, and it's not what he's passionate about. And it's like Nick Cage himself wants to do projects that he's passionate about, while also sometimes just taking stuff for paychecks to do. But he's always bringing something, and it feels like he's not doing these big blockbusters anymore, because he sort of did that, and it almost feels like he doesn't want to. I don't know. He's got an interesting career.
Yeah, no, he really does. He's run the gamut. I mean, you can kind of break his career down into a number of phases, but also in all of those, there's kind of surprises. I mean, go back to Vampire's Kiss. The guy's been doing crazy, weird roles since the late 80s, early 90s. And it's Moon, not Moon,
Moonstruck?
Moonlight, right? Moonstruck.
Yeah.
He is insane in that role.
Oh yeah.
He is so wild. His character is like a one-handed baker. He's been doing nuts stuff since the beginning, but it's Nick Cage. And so it's nice to then, like, now all these years later, still have these movies where he's just playing. It's still an interesting character. It's still a little, he remembers every meal he's ever cooked, every person he's ever served, which sure, whatever. But he's a guy that wants his pig, and he's sad about stuff that happened in his life, and he just wants to go back and live his life. And it's just nice that's the character that we see. And yeah, like, he could go crazy when he first meets Adam Arkin and is, like, give me my pig back. He could go crazy when he finds out the pig is dead. Spoiler alert. But he doesn't. Like, he breaks down and he cries, and then he's realizing, like, okay, I got to move on. And that, like, prompts him to start processing the other stuff in his life. But it's all just like, it's all in subtle facial expressions and quiet talking. And it's good. It's a good performance. And I think this movie needed that performance, because I think, like, if without that Robin character being rock solid, there's so much of this that I just wouldn't have really, like, cared about.
Right. Like, the elevator pitch for this movie, how this got any funding at all is baffling to me, because the elevator pitch is, guy who used to be a chef now is a hermit out in the woods finding truffles, has his truffle pig stolen, and he goes back to town to find it. Like, how do you get a producer to be like, that's brilliant, let's make it, I'll give you money to make this movie? But somehow Michael Sarnowski pulled that off, and he got Nicolas Cage interested in it enough to be in it.
I think too, these, like, takedowns of modern high-end cuisine are kind of in at the moment, because there's another movie coming out called The Menu, with Ralph Fiennes and Nicholas Hoult and Anya Taylor-Joy, and it's it is I'm pretty sure it's about cannibalism if you've seen the trailer. It's not super subtle in what it seems to be trying to be about, or like ruining rich people through like there just seems to be something about like let's use high-end cuisine as a commentary on the bourgeoisie.
Yeah. It's kind of it's just it's one of those things because like Chef, 10 years ago, sort of brought that was like the movie I can think of that really made sort of the restaurant scene really popular in movies. Was that, and this is sort of taking that wave that we've seen in this and cooking shows and those things and sort of breaking it down again.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also an industry that is tied very heavily to Hollywood because a lot of people have worked those jobs, you know, so you write and you work off what you know.
Yeah, that's very true. But you're right in that this movie doesn't work without a solid performance in there. And it's hard for me to picture anyone else really playing Robin the way that Cage does. Because typically when you have a character who's very subdued like that and isn't like done by a character actor, you normally think of that as being somebody who's kind of like the neutral mask. It's sort of Neo in The Matrix, where it's like the audience can put themselves into that position. But that's not who Nicolas Cage is. Like, Nicolas Cage has never been the neutral mask. He's always Nicolas Cage in whatever he's doing. And he brings that here, and it's like I can't picture anyone else being Robin Feld.
Right.
Certainly not in the way that he was. And then to have like, so there's a couple of moments. There's that moment where Amir is asking him like, well, what the hell are we doing all this for then? And he's like, I just want my pig back. I love her. Like it wasn't some grand thing. Like John Wick went after the Russians because they killed his dog, and that dog was a symbol of his grief for his wife dying, and it was his like ability to grieve for her because it was a gift from her. The pig, we get no indication that this pig is in any way tied to his wife being gone or having died. It's just, it was the pig he had, and it was his pet, and he loved that pig. He said he didn't even need the pig to find truffles. Like, he could do that himself. He just liked the pig. He loved that pig, and someone took it from him, and he just wanted it back.
Yeah, he was just living a simple life, and his one companion in the world is this pig, and someone took it, and he wants it back. And
they took it for, as far as he knew, absolutely zero reason. And so I liked that. Like that was a subversion that I wasn't necessarily prepared for. Like, again, I was sort of, some of it is setting myself up, right? From movies that I've seen before, but I was kind of setting up for like the moment where he reveals, here's the X, Y, and Z reasons of why I want my pig back. He's just like, I just want my pig. And then,
just want my pig.
And then that moment in the diner at the end where he's sitting there and he's like, if I had never come back into town, the pig would still be alive in my head.
Right. Yeah.
Like if he had never gone after her, then in his head, the pig could still be alive. Sort of a Schrodinger's cat situation. And Amir is like, yeah, but she wouldn't be.
Right. That is like, it doesn't change the fact.
And it's like that moment. And that's the culmination of Robin realizing that he can move on from this. And if he can move on from this, he can move on from losing his wife as well. So we get that really touching moment where he finally listens to the tape that she made him at the very end, singing was it a Bruce Springsteen song, I think?
Yeah, I think it was.
Which was a beautiful song, by the way. Like it was a gorgeous cover. I didn't.
Yeah.
And so it ends up being that journey for Robin of figuring out that it's okay to let go of things, of the grief that has happened in the past without forgetting it, and you can continue on. And go ahead.
Yeah, he had transferred those emotions to the pig in a way. Not to say that he had, he's like, I'm out here in the woods and this is my pig wife,
right?
But he this was the thing that he took care of and needed him, and so he still wasn't over the death of his wife and still processing it. So like there is some level of like, this is the thing, I couldn't take care of her and keep her alive. So I'm taking care of this pig and keeping it alive. And like, as long, that like, this is the thing that I care about most in the world. And then it's gone. and it says something, there's nothing like her. There's nothing like this pig, right? He kept emphasizing the whole movie, like, I can't just go buy another pig.
Right.
There's nothing like this pig in the world. And so, yeah, through everything where it's like, probably part of why he was staying in the woods and not coming back to Portland is like, if he's not in Portland, she's still alive, right? His wife, in a way, because like that's where they lived. And so he now has to confront, like, yeah, no, you can't just pretend she's not gone. You have to actually deal with the fact that she's gone.
Yeah. Yep. That was the other, and that's a great parallel where he's staying outside of Portland because of that. And it's another thing too, where it's like, as an audience, and especially as somebody who has a dog, let's say, if the pet he had as a dog or a cat, we immediately latch on and we understand that it's just like, he just wants his dog back. He just wants his cat back, whatever. But like a pig, we don't think of like a pet. And so like your initial thought is it's more of a utility animal because it's a truffle pig. So he has the pig in order to find the truffles. Finding the truffles is his livelihood. That's why he wants the pig back. And it's so much simpler than that. And it's so much more human than that, which I did like. And so for him to like reopen those wounds, and then the metaphor of all of his facial wounds and all of that, which, dude, look rough, like the whole movie.
Yeah, there were times where it's like he's walking into buildings and I'm like, people would be concerned.
Yeah.
Like the child who's sitting on their back porch who has a crazed, like a homeless looking man who is bloody in the face just popping up, and the kid's like, hey, want to be friends? It's like, nah, dude, like you should probably run terrified.
Although at the same time, like I can totally see a kid doing that too. Just being like, hey, you seem...
Yeah, and I could see a parent seeing it being like,
out.
oh my God, yeah, get away from my child.
I kept waiting for that to happen. I kept waiting for the parent to come outside and like see him there, and nothing. Doesn't happen at all. He just has the conversation with the kid, and then we move on. Which there was a lot of that in this movie. I feel like there was a lot of like moments where a scene would start and I'd be waiting for this inevitable outcome, and then it didn't happen that way.
Yeah.
And the scene would go in a completely different direction.
Yeah. So the movie is only about an hour and a half, which like when I saw that starting up, I was like, cool. I'm glad we're still making an hour and a half movies, like not everything needs to be 2 hours. I think there could have been a little bit more meat on these bones, even at 90 minutes. I thought like there's some scenes they could have maybe beefed up a little bit more. And I like quieter moments in movies. I do. I think they're great, but I think like sometimes it can also be like, all right, let's move on to the next thing a little bit.
Yeah, I did read that the initial rough cut of the movie was like an hour longer, which that's too long, I think.
Yeah, that's way too long.
Like, nearly 1 hour was cut from this movie. Its distributors thought it was too long. That is too long, but I could see it falling somewhere in that hour 45 to hour 50 range. Like tack on anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, and you could find that without not all of it in one spot, but like lengthen a little bit here, add something here. Yeah. I could see that happening. But it's an interestingly paced movie because it is an hour and a half long, but it feels longer than that. I think because of the slow pace. And again, that sort of that subversion of your expectations scene after scene, I think helps or makes that happen too, because the scenes feel longer because now you're setting yourself up and then it doesn't go that way. And you don't really have time to process that before we're moving on to the next thing. And so now you're getting yourself set back up for, so this is the direction they're going to go now. And then they don't. Like every turn they made was a left.
Right.
But in a good way.
Yeah, I think they set up my expectations for things to get real wild with the underground boxing ring. And then it's just like, oh no, it's just a series of conversations about who has his pig.
Yep. And then you think like there's going to be some sort of like big shouting match or something the first time he meets up with Amir's dad, and it just sort of ends and he leaves.
Yeah.
And then they set you up for like, okay, we're going to get my pig back, and it's gathering a grocery list to make him dinner.
Right. Right. Yeah, I was wondering where that scene was going to go.
And that scene's great because he told him, like, I don't ever want to see you again, blah, 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 kicks him out of the house. And they sneak back in, make dinner. And when Amir goes to his dad's office and he's like, Dad, we made you dinner. Dad doesn't even look up from the table. It's just like, you can leave now. He just treated his own son with such contempt.
Yeah.
And Amir was a character who, boy, they make you not like him at the beginning of the movie. Like, he's just an ass at the start of the movie. And really for like a good, probably first third to half of the movie, he's like that. And you end up coming around and you realize kind of what he's going through personally, and he starts to grow a little bit, and he starts to see, not only because it's one thing for him to see Robin, like find out who Rob is, right? It's Robin Feld. It's this chef that his parents hold in such high esteem for what he did and all this kind of stuff. That would be the real tropey way for him to kind of come around, and he sort of does, but it becomes more than that. Like, he starts to really see what Rob is going through. And I appreciated that quite a bit. I thought that was a really good performance too.
Yeah, no, I thought he was good. I thought he was going to be a very minor character who kind of disappears very early on, but then he's with us throughout the entire movie. I thought, yeah, it's I guess like it's a good, like, good contrast to his character. You know, to the Nick Cage character. He's very chatty throughout the movie, to kind of fill in those silences. But like, they get to kind of grow. You get with him and see his heart a bit as time goes on. And I thought, in ways, I'm glad that we had a character like that, because the Nick Cage character was so Rob was so subdued, so quiet, that like his transformation is throughout the film and takes place kind of at the end. But to have a character that, you know, it wasn't just about Rob, and I guess like that kind of helps give more to the movie. It's like, and I really kind of was feeling for Amir, and Nick Cage is right. His dad is horrible. His dad's bad, but he's trying to live in the shadow of him. It felt like there wasn't really a ton of resolution to that. But I guess, you know, it's not always neat and easy.
No, and that sort of felt real to me. Like, that felt like an actual family dynamic, because there isn't a resolution to what's going on with his father, but there's also, like, at the end of the movie, Rob is taking the steps forward to sort of come out of his grief and live a life and move forward, whereas Amir is coming to grips with who his father actually is in relation to him, and who he is and who he's trying to be. And it sort of mirrors that whole idea of like when Rob breaks down the chef and is like, well, what kind of food do you want to make? And it's sort of, because when we meet Rob, he's got his Camaro, and it's this shiny, gaudy. That was the funny thing. When he pulled up in the car, I'm like, a Camaro way the hell out here? So obviously there's roads. Okay. But he's got this just like flashy car, and he's wearing a suit, and he's the fast talking guy. And it makes sense for his job that he would be very chatty and very smooth talking or very fast talking. But he's also like, he's listening to people talking about classical music and how important it is. Right. And these things where it feels like that kind of thing where he's doing that because he thinks that's what he needs to listen to. It's maybe not necessarily,
that's what his dad.
Yeah. Like, it's not his music. It's not he's not passionate about that, but it's what he thinks he's supposed to. So he's really putting that on. Which is why that scene at the end, after Rob leaves and says, you know what, I'm going to walk home. And he gets back in his car, starts it up, the audio starts playing, and he shuts off the audio, and he ends up just curling up to sleep in his car. And I don't know exactly what's going on there. Like, I have questions about it, but at the same time, I can see where he's trying to figure some things out about himself and what he really wants. And so, whereas Rob's transformation and growth throughout the movie is very subtle and very subdued and all of that, Amir is like, everything's on his sleeve. Everything is out in the open. And plus that swerve of him breaking down and telling Rob the whole thing about his mother, and then telling him that, you know, his mother had committed suicide without really giving us any context for that. And then to find out, no, that was the story he would tell because the truth was much harder for him, that his father was keeping her alive in a coma, basically. And not allowing her to succumb to whatever mystery illness or affliction she has, which we don't even really learn.
Yeah, and that's, again, like, I'm kind of glad, like, I don't need them to be like, oh, and this is exactly what happened. Like,
Yeah.
was there an accident and she's stuck like this? Was it a disease and she's stuck like this? Like, all that stuff's ambiguous, but, like, you know, to Amir, she's as good as dead,
Yep.
right? Because he won't even go to see her. He's still like goes and kinds of visit her door, which is kind of like, you know, visiting the gravestone, I kind of feel like, but he can't actually like confront that. So he also has stuff he has not let go.
Yep. Yeah, and it feels like he is on the path to being able to let some of those things go and maybe get out from under his father's shadow by the end of the movie. Because clearly he's good at what he does too. I mean, he was selling truffles to other restaurants, and whether or not that was like his dad just allowing that to happen, we're sort of led to believe maybe it is, but at the same time, like, he's clearly got some ability. He's gregarious and he's friendly. People kind of like him. I mean, he walks up, that clip I played at the beginning, that woman, her first thing is like, I don't like buyers coming out to the site, but she doesn't kick him out immediately. She lets him have his, you know, say his piece. So he's obviously got a good rapport with people.
Right. Yeah. He's trying, and the dad even admits, like, he thought his son was going to fail entirely, but he hasn't. But he's still like, but he's still not good enough, you know.
Oh, just that whole dad character. You just want to punch him in the face the whole time. There's something about, and it's something about Adam Arkin can portray that so well. I don't know what it is. Alec Wolf, I think, is who played Amir. I think is his name. Alex Wolf. Sorry. This is the first thing I've ever seen him in. I thought he was good.
I'm looking. I haven't seen him. I haven't seen Old. I haven't seen Hereditary.
Oh, he was in Hereditary. I haven't seen that.
Yeah. But yeah, nothing I had seen. But I liked him. He played. He annoyed me at first. I didn't like his character at first. I'm oh no, okay. He's playing the character well. It's you know, the suit and the glasses and the slicked back hair. I'm like, I don't like this guy.
No, not at all. Like, and his first interaction with Rob is great because he comes up and he's trying to chat him up, and you can tell, like, this is what he does every time, every week, and it goes exactly the same way, where he tries to chat him up and Rob just doesn't say a word and walks away. And I just kept waiting for the, like, okay, thanks, good talk. And sure enough, that's exactly what he said as he's leaving.
Yeah, but then he admits, like, you know, I'm the only person you have in your life. Like, you're gonna die out there, and I'm gonna find you.
Yeah, and he goes through all those steps. Like, he goes through getting angry with him, and then pleading with him to figure out what's going on, and finally, like, it was a good emotional range out of Alex Wolff as Amir throughout the movie, I thought.
Yeah. The movie also needed him as much as the movie needed Nick Cage, I think.
Yeah, again, it's Nick Cage, Alex Wolff, and Adam Arkin. They're the three pillars that hold this movie up. Without all three of them really playing the roles that they're given the way that they do, it just doesn't work, because it's not going to be memorable. Because, like you said, it's just a bunch of conversations of this guy looking for his pig.
Right.
Is what the movie is, which is not what you sort of, when you start the movie, you don't think that's the direction it's going to go in. I kind of like that it did, because it wasn't what I was expecting. But it's all carried by those three. And if those three aren't hitting on all cylinders, then it just all falls apart on its own weight. I find this to be a fascinating movie. I'm really curious to see what the director does next with his A Quiet Place Day One, or whatever it's called. Year One, maybe. I lost it.
Who knows?
But Michael Sarnowski, pretty young kid, and I think he's got a bright future. This feels like somebody who has the potential to have a really good career, as long as he doesn't fall into, say, like the M. Night Shyamalan trap, where his first movie gets really well reviewed and is kind of a sleeper. This Pig is nowhere near the hit that The Sixth Sense was, commercially.
No, not even close.
But like in terms of film circles, it's gotten a lot of good praise, and I think it has like a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like it's
and I remember people talking about it when it first was coming out.
Yeah, so I'm really hoping that that he can turn that into something viable going forward, because it feels like he has some interesting ideas and interesting ways to sort of weave layers into his scripts, and on top of that, the visual style between his directing and the director of photography I thought was also pretty cool. It had a very muted color palette, which, good or bad, I think it fits this movie and sort of the type of feeling we had from all the characters during the movie. So all the colors being very muted and very subdued made sense.
Yeah.
A Quiet Place Day 1 or Part 3. So the third A Quiet Place is what he's working on next.
Sure. But of course, it's a prequel.
Yeah.
Can't see me rolling my eyes, people, but I am.
Yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with prequels. I don't hate them on their face, but they got to be good to work, and unfortunately many of them don't.
Nope.
So we'll see on that, but I think he's got a decent career ahead of him. And for a Nick Cage movie, this is one of the better ones that I've seen recently, and I've seen some pretty good ones. I watched Unbearable Weight. Moonstruck is a fantastic movie if you haven't seen it before.
Yes.
It's like you said, it's Nick Cage going, full Nick Cage in there as the one-handed baker, but boy, that's a good movie. But this one for me ranks pretty high in terms of Nicolas Cage movies. It's one that I want to watch again to kind of try and sort of dissect even more and kind of pay attention to some of the background stuff and some of like the layered things and sort of how the conversations fit together. I don't know. It had my brain really turning today of like, oh yeah, man, I want to know more. I want to like dive into it even more.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I think it's one that I probably will see again at some point. We'll watch. I don't know when, but yeah, I liked it. Yeah, it's a good movie.
I had a couple. It's funny, for a Nick Cage movie, it is not a clippable movie. It's not like
it's not.
It's not Vampire's Kiss, where I could just have pages and pages of great clips from that. But I did have a couple that I had to get. This one was when they're first going into the one restaurant, and like Amir is walking up, and he goes, "Oh no, I can't." He turns around, like walks away, like I can't be seen, because he knew the guy that was coming out. And when it finally, the guy won't let Nick Cage in, or when they're going in the back door of that restaurant. And I just love this exchange when he lets him in anyway.
Or just
whatever, man.
He's Buddhist.
I don't care.
I don't care.
Because Nick, he had to have, like, not enough people were reacting to his smell. Is all I'm gonna say.
That is true. That is the one thing I kept waiting for somebody to say something about the smell. The closest we get is do you want one of those camp showers?
Right. Yeah, at the very beginning,
which was the subtle way of being like, dude, you reek.
Right.
But yeah, I just that scene in that alley, like anyone who has worked in a restaurant has that same like just browbeaten attitude of like, whatever, I don't care, just do the thing.
I don't care,
like,
just
I'm not
They're
paid
not
enough
paying me to care about this.
I'm having a smoke break, just go. So that was great. This was, let's see, this was the line.
We don't get a lot of things to really care about.
I like that.
Good line.
Because that's
good delivery.
Mm-hmm. And this is prior to us knowing his real reason behind why he wanted the pig back, just loving the pig as a pet and like a family member. And so that whole idea of like, we don't get a lot of things to care about. And it's important to care about the things that you do. So I liked that.
Yeah. 100%.
from that same scene, whenever there is like really forced or fake laughter, I have to capture it. And this is honestly one of my more favorites. Was the chef this is right after, because when he asks him what was your signature dish going to be, and before that sentence is even fully out of Cage's mouth, he's answering with the whatever liver Scotch eggs.
Yeah, something like that.
And then that nervous breaking laughter that he had after that was great, and that sounded like this. That is a broken man. He is.
Yep.
He has realized what he is doing is not what he cares about at all, and that was after the stammer, which I also captured, which was even better. Where because Cage is like, "But is this the kind of cooking you like? Didn't you want to open a pub?" And he's just like,
I don't know that I really wanted. I mean, it was just such a long time ago.
He made so much noise and said nothing.
Yeah.
It was so good. That actor was just like, he killed it in that scene, and it was both heartbreaking and hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was a good scene, and like you said, like that guy, yeah, he was, the second that he realized who Nick Cage was kind of on the defensive a little bit, and yeah, some of those voice tics of his really were telling.
And it was like the minute he figured out who he was one level of that, but then it got kicked to another level when Rob revealed that he remembered this guy. So now now you've got that, and just like it just kept ratcheting up more and more. And so his nervousness was it was like he said so much without saying words, and his facial expressions were priceless. So I really enjoyed that. Those are the only clips from the movie, but I feel like those were pretty fun. I think this is a good movie. I think people should see it. And now you had mentioned at the beginning that you feel like there are definitely people that wouldn't like this movie, and I can see that.
Or like would have different expectations for it. Because I thought it was going to be a little bit of a wilder Nick Cage role. It's like, oh no, it's not. It's it's him being. And I know some people that would absolutely love that, but there's also some people too that would probably not give it the what it needs because they're expecting wild Nick Cage.
Yeah, and not only do you not get wild Nick Cage, but it's a movie that really doesn't go anywhere. And it's a weird way to say that, but like everything that's happening is happening internally. It's internally for the character of Rob. It's internally for the character of Amir. And it's not a movie that has like a plot that really matters. It's a character study is what it is.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I definitely have friends of mine that I wouldn't recommend just running out to see this just as a movie because it's not going to be what they're expecting. And some of that again is that whole idea of like people equating it to John Wick with a pig, and it's just not that. It's
not what it is. No.
Yeah, it's a very different type of movie. But it's really good. So if you do enjoy character studies, or you just want to sit down and have kind of a quiet, subdued movie where some people work through some emotions, this is definitely a movie to watch.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And sometimes you need that. Like sometimes I appreciate a movie that does that, because I don't always want that. I sometimes just want to shut my brain off and watch things explode and jump around on screen. But,
sure, and sometimes you want Nick Cage being Nick Cage, you want him screaming, you want him doing wild stuff.
Yeah, you want Nick Cage trying to turn into a cartoon character. You sometimes just do.
Yeah, you do.
And then other times, like I do appreciate a movie like this, which can give me questions and can give me some emotional responses that I'm just not ready for. That's the beauty of filmmaking as an art form, is that it can take all these different forms, whether it's Vampire's Kiss or Pig, and they can be the same guy can be in both.
Yeah, and they're good for different reasons.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you, David, for being here this week. This was a great conversation and a lot of fun on a movie that I'm glad I got to see finally, and I'm glad that you got to see as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad that it's been on my list forever. I'm glad you gave me the opportunity because it's one of those things where it's like I have so much other stuff to watch that I'm just probably not going to sit down and watch it. And so when it's like, hey, you have to watch this, I'm like, okay, all right, I'll get the time.
Yeah, sometimes we
I'm
just
glad.
need that.
Yeah, there's a million things to watch out there.
Oh boy, tell me about it. I was having a conversation with some people earlier today, and they were naming off 4 or 5 things. I'm like, I don't have the hours in the week to watch any of those. But yeah, it's like I'll put it on the list. It's just gonna have to go down on the list a little ways.
Right, exactly. And that's where I am for a billion different things.
Yep. Yeah, and on top of just everything, like different shows, different projects, work, whatever. Just watching things just for the fun of it sometimes. So, speaking of projects, do you have anything you want to tell people about?
Oh, I mean, this is kind of a wild time for me right now. I'm not doing as much podcasting as I would like to. At the time, people can still catch all the stuff I've done is out there. Hit Me One More Time is it's on a hiatus. Figuring it out. But you can still also catch Movie Go Round, which is coming out pretty regularly. And I'm around Davluz, DAVLUZ, Twitter and Instagram. School's starting back up, so I'm real busy at this time of the year, but hoping to ramp up with some stuff a little bit later as the as the year becomes not less hectic, but I get into my groove a lot more.
Right, you can sort of anticipate the hectic a little bit better.
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, yeah, definitely. If you haven't, if you're listening to this show and you haven't checked out either Hit Me One More Time or Movie Go Round, you should. Movie Go Round is a great movie podcast.
Thank you.
Definitely worth checking out. And Hit Me One More Time is fun, much like Those Were the Days that I do about classic just television. It's great to go back and revisit some of those old things and see, are they any good or not? Because some of them are, and as we find on Those Were the Days, some of them aren't.
Some of them are not. Some of it's not good.
No. But thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and good luck with the school year coming up.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on. I'm glad I could be here.
Absolutely. You're welcome back anytime. So if you want to hang out and watch the show get recorded live, you can do that Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Time at twitch.tv/TVsTravis. And the show comes out as a podcast on Wednesdays at tvstravis.com or anywhere you get your podcasts. Just search for Wait You Haven't Seen. I'm also now putting the live streamed, the recordings of the live stream up on YouTube. So if I can get to enough subscriptions, then I will be able to get a vanity URL that I can say. But for now, if you search for Wait You Haven't Seen or TV's Travis on YouTube, you can find them on there. Full episodes. It's only going back a few because I only had a few of them archived. But finally putting some stuff up on YouTube. So keep an eye out for that as well. So thank you once again, David, for being on. Next week's movie is going to be a bit of a surprise. So you'll just have to pay attention to Twitter at TV's Travis this week. I will let you know who my guest is and what movie we're watching. So until next time, just remember that there's only one Nicolas Cage, and we're all better for having him around. This has been Wait You Haven't Seen.
Well, I'm not fucking moving to Seattle.
Fuck Seattle.
I don't like Seattle and Portland, apparently.
No, it's a real thing.
Oh, thank you. That was fun. That was a good movie. I had fun with that.
Yeah, no, thank you again. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Like I said, anytime. I'm glad that Movie Go Round is doing well. What was the one you just did for Movie Go Round?
I can't remember what we just released.
Because because Corey Scott talked about it, and it was one of those where it was that. Let's see.
Was it Lord of the Rings Midnight Special? Dirty Dancing.
Might have been Dirty Dancing he mentioned, and I was like, yeah, I liked that movie a lot more than I thought. Might have been Lord of the Rings now that I look at it. Great movies, great stuff to watch. Dirty Dancing was better than I thought it was going to be. Like I was not.
Dirty Dancing's pretty good.
Like I was anticipating being like, okay, movie's fine, whatever. But I got done with that, and I'm like, wow, it was like, for me, it's like Clueless. Clueless has no reason to be as good as it is, but Clueless is amazing.
Oh yeah, Clueless is great.
Like I'm constantly surprised by certain movies that I think are going to be kind of vapid and dumb, and then they turn out to be deeper than that. It's like, oh, okay, there's a reason that Dirty Dancing has stayed kind of this 80s classic for so long. And it was just, younger me didn't want to have anything to do with it. And I'm kind of sad for that because, like, I missed out.
Right. Well, I mean, but now, as an adult, you're like, oh, wait, I understand these things better. That shows growth,
Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely know I appreciate a movie like that more as an adult than I would have in my teens or early 20s. But also like taste changing and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Amy says, exactly. Dirty Dancing was one of my formative movies. And that makes sense. I can see that.
It's all coming together now.
The funny thing with Dirty Dancing is it was a movie, like it's set in the 50s, I think 50s or 60s. And the only thing that threw me off the first time watching it was when the song starts playing at the end for the big dance number. It's clearly an 80s song because it's got that gated reverb drum snare that is like indicative of 80s music. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can suspend my disbelief, but that song was not recorded when this movie came out, like when this movie was set. And it threw me for a second, but it's the 80s, 50s.
I think we talked about that. Yeah. Right, exactly. Right. It's the feeling of the 50s. It's not the 50s itself.
Yes. Yeah. Stranger Things, that's a good example. Stranger Things isn't the 80s, but it is what we remember the 80s as being. Although, in credit to Stranger Things, it's closer to what I remember from the 80s than a lot of other nostalgic shows and movies get. Like, there was a movie I watched for Gore called Summer of '84 that felt like a bit of a cheaper version of Stranger Things and like their nostalgia, where like it felt like they missed a little bit. Where Stranger Things, I feel like they really try to get that nostalgia right. I mean, it's still nostalgia.
Still nostalgia, right?
But, oh, excellent. Well, your computer survived, so it's something with your camera, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. Let me see if that'll even turn on at this point. It probably, no, I just do the 2 blocks thing. Yeah, I don't know what the heck happened. Like it froze and crashed on me entirely. And then it was, so I don't know.
Because I was talking and I noticed you didn't move, but I thought, well, he's just listening. And then I paused for a second and you just stayed stone straight staring at the camera. And I'm like, I've lost David. He's not here anymore.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, luckily my boot drive is solid state, so I can get back up pretty quickly.
Yeah. We make it work.
Yeah, but I appreciate it. Thank you for your patience on that.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go do some lesson planning, so
you do that.
I will talk to you soon.
All right. Have a great night.
You too, man.
Bye.
Bye.
And thank you, everybody, for hanging out. As always, you're wonderful. Love y'all. You're great. This week, we're watching Green Acres for tomorrow. For those were the days. So that'll be fun. Talk some more pigs. It's pigs all the time. Funny thing was, the other day, some folks were watching an episode of Columbo, and it had the guy, I can't think of the actor's name, from Green Acres in the Columbo episode. So it's just one of those things. And Highlander on Tuesday. It's going to be fun. So come on back for those. I've been bad about the gaming streams the last few weeks. I've been kind of trying to recapture a little energy. So I've been taking some extra days when we're not recording like Gore or whatever to recharge and kind of gear up for more winter. When I'm not going to want to go outside in the evening or anything like that. So we'll see. I'm still going to try and do some stuff maybe on Wednesday or Friday or even early on Thursday. We should see. Amy, I'm with you on that. We should find another good co-op game because those are always fun streams to do as well. And I can always jump into Skyrim and run around as Mardigan. I mean, I've finished the main quest, but there's all sorts of side quests to do and fireballs to throw. So I'm getting that feeling back, though. But yes, I would love to find another co-op game. At any rate, we're going to call that a night so that I can get Bella out one more time because this prednisone is making her pee all the time. She's going through like whole bowls of water at a time. It's crazy, but she's doing much better. So, yeah, Fall Guys is one. That's always fun to do. So yeah, let's we'll think about that. We'll decide some stuff, but definitely come back tomorrow night for Those Were the Days. I can't wait. It's been so long since I've seen Green Acres, and then Highlander on Tuesday. So thanks everybody for being here. You're wonderful, and we will talk to you soon. Okay, bye.